There is a difference between excellence and perfection. This is not an invitation to be perfect. You get to be imperfect and still be excellent. Wait a minute. Okay. Spirit of excellence means when I walk away from a speaking engagement or a speaking gig, right? When I walk away from a coaching session, I don't ask myself, was that perfect? Meaning, did everything work right? Were there no typos on my slides? The tech messed up during a live broadcast. As soon as it messed up, I'm like, oh my God, this wasn't excellent. That's not true. It was imperfect. Excellence means every time I walk away from those things, I ask myself, did I do my absolute best? That's the only question you need to ask yourself. Did I do my absolute best?
Optimal health is not a privilege, it's a right. However, unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of health challenges today can be attributed to lifestyle. This includes our physical activity, the quality of our relationships, stress, purpose and fulfillment, and of course, our diet. But what if there was an alternative? What if we could prevent and combat these health challenges with lifestyle changes before pills and procedures? You are listening to the Plant Protocol Podcast with yours truly, plant-based health and business coach, and now the forever voice in your head, Lisa A. Smith. It's time to come get this health.
I want to talk about a spirit of excellence as you guys come on in. Let me tell you kind of where this topic comes from today. So I went live impromptu yesterday on Instagram. You know, last Monday was supposed to be my very last live on Instagram, but I can't get enough. So I went live yesterday morning. I was out in the park yesterday, getting some miles in. And I went live on Instagram yesterday to share why I'm talking about the spirit of excellence today. And one of the things I shared on Instagram yesterday was the biggest and the best mistake I've made in business. And I talked about that we've been in business a whole decade, y'all, since 2015. So we've been in business an entire decade. And one of the biggest mistakes that turned out to be one of the best mistakes that I made in business is that for many, many years in our business, I spent the overwhelming majority of my time, energy, and resources on building a great product, building a great service. And it was so important to me that the integrity of our service really lined up with our public messaging and marketing. So I was consumed with making sure that we had a good product, a good service. That was my priority for many years in business, which means that other things in the business suffered a little bit, like our branding, like our customer experience, like our, operations and standard operating procedures and documenting our processes in the background, right? And so while we spent so many years focused on building out a great service, we neglected some other things in business, which means now we're playing catch up. However, there's been a huge benefit to that, which is I have inadvertently developed a spirit of excellence. So one of the things I say often is I talk about the importance of having a spirit of excellence in everything that you do. But one of the things that I've never done before is actually break down what I mean when I say that. What does it actually mean to have a spirit of excellence? And what does it mean to execute with a spirit of excellence continuously, repeatedly, consistently, right? If you've never thought in these terms before, it can almost feel impossible. Like, how do I have a spirit of excellence repeatedly, consistently, all the time? Like, is that even realistic? And so I thought it would be super cool for me to break down to you guys what it means to have a spirit of excellence for me today. And let me tell you how this has been so pervasive in the ethos of our community and our culture. Man, I'm currently teaching a cohort for one of our coaching programs called Farm to Table that we've been teaching since 2016. And we're currently teaching a cohort of Farm to Table right now. And so let me tell y'all something super cool that happened in a cohort in one of our classes recently. So I'm currently teaching a cohort of Farm to Table, our plant-based coaching program. And at the beginning of every class, we have this thing called scale and non-scale victories. So what happens is our students come in and I say, share your scale and non-scale victory. So a scale victory is anything that's measurable. So that means anything that attaches to a number. Did your blood pressure drop? Did your weight go down? Give us a scale victory. But then we also celebrate what we call non-scale victories. And we define that as things that are not attached to a number. So recently during class, one of our students was sharing her non-scale victory, and she told the best story. Shout out to Kimberly. She told the best story. She talked about how she's a teacher and she had a presentation coming up and she had to present to her colleagues, to her principal of the school. She had to present. And she said she created this presentation and she just had me in the back of her mind the entire time as she was creating the presentation. And as she was preparing to execute on the presentation, she talked about how she was super, super intentional about doing it with excellence. She said, Coach Lisa, I've been listening to your podcast. I listen to your podcast all the time. And this excellence thing, this spirit of excellence was resonating with me. It was in my spirit. And so I had to do the presentation at work and I put it together and I did it with a spirit of excellence. And she said, when she finished the presentation, y'all, she said it was a round of applause and it was all of these accolades about how well she done. And she talked about how even her principal was like, that was amazing. And she said she was so proud of herself because how intentional she was about presenting with the spirit of excellence, putting the presentation together with a spirit of excellence, and just being really intentional. And she said, most importantly, she knew as she was doing it. It wasn't like later in hindsight, like this was my favorite part of the story. She said she knew as she was doing it in the midst of the delivery that it was excellent. I said, yes. What? She said she knew as she was executing, like, this is good. Like they were getting it and she was getting it at the same time. Y'all know how sometimes you could do something and you're like, I think it's going okay, but you try and gauge the audience's reaction to determine if, am I doing a good job? Is this good? But she said she knew that she was doing a phenomenal job. And that was such a big deal to me because I was like, man, someone listened to my content and they took it upon themselves to up level. She decided to execute with a spirit of excellence and it really, really, really paid off for her at work. And so I figured I would come on today and talk to you guys about what it means to actually have a spirit of excellence. I want to define it for you guys. Let me tell you another reason why this is so important. If you guys have never, ever taken into consideration what it means to execute with a spirit of excellence before now, let me tell you why now is the time, especially if you are an entrepreneur, if you're building a business, building a personal brand, meaning your face and your likeness is the brand identity. If you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you have to create intellectual property like a book or a curriculum, or you're producing a podcast, if you're creating content for people to consume, maybe you're starting your own YouTube channel. Let me tell you why now more than ever before a spirit of excellence is required. And the reasoning is super simple. And that is because the market is shifting from people making buying decisions and making decisions about who to watch and whose content to consume. It's shifting from the quality of our service or the quality of our content mattering the most to the quality of our delivery mattering more. Like, absolutely, we all want to have a super, super high quality service. We want to have really good content. We want to keep people engaged, right? However, the market is shifting from the quality of our service mattering the most to the quality of our delivery mattering the most. Why? Because we can now all use technology very easily to improve the quality of our service. Like, you can create something and then run it through an AI model and say, improve the title of this for me, improve the order of this for me, rewrite this so it sounds better, right? Give me a better title, give me a better system, build meal plans for my students, like help me build out a curriculum for this. Like, now we all have equal access to a technology that can in moments improve the quality of our service, improve the quality of our products. So what will now become the differentiator between you and a competitor is going to be the quality of your delivery. While technology and AI can build out your stuff for you, you still have to package it and deliver it in a super attractive way. And if you have not adopted a spirit of excellence, you're going to struggle. Because don't think that if just because technology can help you write the book or help you create topics for your content or your podcast, that that's going to be enough to capture and hold an audience. Now more than ever, even though technology can help you with the build out of those things, your delivery has to be even better. It has to be even better. So let me tell you guys my 4 traits of excellence, because it doesn't come automatic. That's what I need you to know. It doesn't come automatic. Excellence is intentional, right? Like you can do good on accident, but excellence is never accidental. Excellence is always intentional. And if up until this point you have not embodied the spirit of excellence, then you got some work to do. But the good news is I got a framework for you. So let's get into what it takes to have a spirit of excellence. So there's 4 characteristics plus a bonus one that I thought of this morning that I want to share with you. So how do I have a spirit of excellence? And when I say a spirit of excellence, that means that everything I put my hands on, everything that I work on, that I create, whether I'm doing a speaking engagement, whether I'm teaching in one of our signature coaching programs, our health coaching program, or our business accelerator, where we help people build coaching businesses and speaking careers, whether I'm facilitating in our mastermind clarity, whether I am collaborating with another entity on something, whether I'm doing consulting work with another organization and helping them build out something. How do I show up to all of that stuff consistently with the spirit of excellence? Here's trait number 1. The very first way I embody a spirit of excellence is I do less at once. I do less at once. So what does that mean? This is all about focus. What if I told you you are not producing excellent work, not because you can't, but simply because you aren't giving yourself the space to? Meaning everything you've been doing and that you've trained yourself to do in these last several months, years, or decades of your life has been hurried. Do less at once. It's nearly impossible for you to have a spirit of excellence when you create, when you deliver something, or even in your personal life, in your workouts. Are your workouts excellent? In your relationships, are you showing up in those as the best version of yourself, right? In all of the areas of your life, whether it's professional or personal, the very first thing I started doing years ago was doing less at once, i.e. focus. Let me tell you, let me make this even more clear. Guys, this is the difference between time management versus task management. Now, those of you who have been in my ecosystem for a while, you've heard me teach the difference between the two, the difference between time management and task management. What if I told you that part of the reason you have not had a spirit of excellence consistently, you maybe do some things well and then other things average. The reason you haven't had a spirit of excellence consistently is because your life, your approach to life is based on time management. So let me tell you the difference. When we do less at once, that means we're not trying to squeeze a whole bunch of stuff in a certain time frame. Like, okay, from 9 to 10, I'm going to do this. And from 11 to 12, I'm going to do this. And from 12 to 2, I'm going to do this, right? What if I told you excellence comes from giving stuff the time it takes versus trying to squeeze a task into a predetermined time frame? So do less at once. Let me make it even more clear, right? Instead of designating time for a task, i.e. from 11 to 12, I'm going to work out. From 12 to 1, I'm going to work on my presentation. From 1 to 2, I'm going to work on my book, right? Instead of designating time for a task, what would happen if you gave the task the time it takes? Meaning you have made a habit out of squeezing a 2-hour task into a 30-minute window. You have made the habit out of squeezing a 2-month task into a 1-week window. So one of the things we teach our students inside of our business accelerator, where we help them build coaching businesses, when it comes to building out their curriculum, I teach people how to build their own signature curriculum so that when they leave our business accelerator, they actually have their own intellectual property. So when students graduate from our business accelerator, they're going to walk away with their own intellectual property, i.e. a program that they created that their clients cannot get anywhere else in the marketplace except from them. Now, you guys can probably imagine that building out your own curriculum takes some time and some work and some work and some time, right? So here's what we tell our students inside of our business accelerator when it comes to building out their own curriculum. We give them the templates, we give them the blueprint. And in that lesson, I tell them, this will take time. Give it the time it takes. So our first characteristic of operating consistently with a spirit of excellence is do less at once. Stop trying to do so many projects, so many things, and one thing like, okay, this quarter or this week or even this year, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, which means the goal at the end of the quarter or the week of the year is just, did it get done? And that is not how excellence works. Now, guys, you have to switch your mindset from did it get done to did it get done with excellence? And when excellence becomes the goal versus just getting it done being the goal, that completely changes how much you're able to do. That completely changes how long you give yourself to do something. So, for example, this first quarter of 2025, I told Sharon, my assistant, I'm like, yo, our only goal for the first quarter, January, February, and March of 2025 is to update and refine our curriculum in the Business Accelerator. That is our primary goal, is to update and refine our curriculum. That means I'm looking at every lesson. I'm reviewing every call to action. I'm looking at how it's laid out in our portal for our students. I'm shortening videos. I'm adding new lessons. That takes time, right? And so I knew that I did not want to squeeze that project into like a 1 month time frame. I'm like, no, we're going to give this 90 days and we're only going to focus on this in that time frame. So first reason you may not be delivering with a spirit of excellence consistently is because you're not giving yourself the space to. Focus on less at once. So it doesn't mean you can't write a book, create a coaching program, and start a podcast this year. But should you? And if the goal is excellence, you probably shouldn't, right? So instead of designating time for a task, you give the task the time it takes. All right. So there's a big difference. And so instead of now, you're no longer concerned with just getting it done. You're now concerned with getting it done with excellence, and that becomes a different goal. So there's a difference between time management and task management. So instead of just saying, I'm going to work on something for 30 minutes, that means I'm going to work on something until it's done well. So like when I do a speaking engagement, for example, before we get to number 2, if I'm doing slides or I have a presentation, I do not like to do those things the day of or even the day before, because I love a good 24, 48 hour period where I can create something, come back and review it in a different mindset, at a different time of day, read it like I'm a consumer. Like if I'm sitting in the audience, would this make sense to me? Some of us, we throw stuff together so fast, we're just excited to get it done, but we know at the end of it, or typically in hindsight, that it could have been done better. Okay. So that's number 1. Do less at once and get away from time management and move into task management. Okay, let's get into number 2. The second way I personally define a spirit of excellence is by increasing my proximity to excellence. So this means I seek out and I invest in professional services versus trying to do everything myself, trying to learn everything myself, and fumbling around and hoping it produces something that people will like, enjoy, or whatever, right? And whether this is personal, like when it comes to my workouts, when it comes to my personal health, when it comes to my personal development, or whether this is professional when it comes to my business. The second way I embody a spirit of excellence is I increase my proximity to excellence, i.e. I have possibility models and or experts in my life who do things with excellence. So I'm going to give you an example. You guys know these Monday morning keynotes are also the live recording of my podcast, the Plant Protocol podcast. So what you're listening to right now will eventually be repurposed onto the Plant Protocol podcast, which you all should be following because I should be in your head every week. Okay. So I could have, actually, I did do this many years. I've been podcasting since 2016, I think. Me and Jay started podcasting. I've been podcasting since 2016. I've had the Professionally Fit podcast. I've had the Black Health Academy podcast, and now we're on the Plant Protocol podcast. And the Plant Protocol podcast is the very first podcast I've had that was produced, like music, intros, outros, ads, clips, all of that stuff, making sure the audio was good. Every podcast I've done before now was like me and Jay with some lapel mics on my phone. I uploaded to SoundCloud, push it out to other platforms. Everything was myself. Now, y'all know my gift is speaking, teaching, shenanigans, right? I am not a podcast editor. However, now that I've embodied the spirit of excellence, what did I do? I increased my proximity and latched on to somebody who was excellent in that thing. So now Colette, shout out to Colette, she produces my podcast, right? And so when you guys hear the music, when you hear the pre-recorded intro, when you hear the ads, all of those things, that is Colette who does that. And so now we can produce an excellent podcast, right? Because we are no longer trying to DIY everything. So for those of you who feel like, I don't want to pay for this, I don't want anybody to do this for me, I'll just figure out how to do it myself. What's the lowest tech way I can do this? What's the simplest way I can do this? That's cool. And I'm not saying there's not a season for that, because like I said, I've done that with plenty of things. However, now I don't just look at like what's the cheapest, what's the lowest. Now I'm all about who's the best, right? Who's already mastered this, who literally does this for a living, right? So I actually hired a podcast editor to produce the podcast because I want it done with excellence. I want people to enjoy listening to it. I don't want any audio issues, right? And so it's so important that you increase your proximity to excellence. For example, another example, I'm a speaker and I've been speaking for years. However, I want to make sure that my talks, I want to make sure that my messages, I want to make sure that all of that is done at a super high level so that, number one, I'm not always chasing down new speaking gigs. I'm getting rebites, right? People saying, you were so amazing. Come back and speak to our audience. Come back to our conference this year, right? I just want to do everything with excellence. Even though speaking is a natural gift for me, we have a responsibility, even with our gifts, to refine them and improve them. And so what did I do? I increased my proximity to the number one motivational speaker in the world. When my coach, ET, offered a mastermind several years ago, I got in it. Increase your proximity to excellence, and you'll be surprised how your bar changes. Like what used to be my ceiling is now my floor, right? Like I critique myself differently now because I'm literally sharing stages and mics and platforms and have intimate correspondence, meaning one-on-one. I can ask questions. I can ask for feedback from somebody who is already dominating in the space. So for some of us, we aren't excellent at what we do because we have no possibility model of what excellence looks like in that space, doing that thing. So whatever you want to do you have a possibility model and have you increased your proximity to them? This is more than just consuming their free stuff. But have you done everything you can to get as close as possible to your possibility model so that you know what excellence looks like in that lane? I had one of our students, I hopped on a one-on-one call with her last week, and she said to me very directly, and this is what I've actually had several people say this to me directly, Lisa, I want to do what you do. I want to do exactly what you do. I want to speak. I want to teach. I want to be a coach. I want the independence that a coaching and a speaking career can provide. Right? I want to make it my full-time gig or make it a close second to my full-time gig, like really genuinely producing revenue. I want to do what you do. And those people typically say, so what you offering? What program am I qualified for that you got? Like, how can I? Where do I sign up? right? And that's really, really wise. I'm like, oh, if you want to do what I do, you got to consume me more than on a podcast. Because in our programs, I'm giving our students personal stories. I'm giving them the back end view of our business and our programs and all of that stuff. Like I'm teaching on a deeper level. I'm telling mistakes we've made so that you can avoid them, right? And so, have you increased your proximity to excellence, or are you surrounded by average and you're trying to be the best? If you're the best in every circle that you're in, then you're probably going to have a hard time up leveling to excellence consistently, because you've already reached what your current circle considers as excellent. So you need a new bar. Like where you are now has to become the floor, and you need a new ceiling, right? And so number 2, increase your proximity to excellence. So when you're listening or watching or reading something and you love the way they do things, the way they deliver, right? If you're like, man, I like the way this author writes. I want to write books like this. I like the way this speaker speaks. I want to speak like this. I like the way this coach is coach. I want to do things like that. Like whatever it is, get up in that thing, like increase your proximity to them, because excellence can be contagious. Excellence can be contagious. I did a speaking engagement with my coach, E.T., literally on Tuesday. We were at a school, and just being there, I heard him say something to somebody. He wasn't even talking to me. I heard him say something to somebody else, and I was like, got it. He wasn't even talking to me, y'all. That's what proximity gets you. Like, I know for a fact, only me and the girl he was talking to heard it. We were the only ones standing right there, right? He wasn't even talking to me, but I was able to pick up a nugget just because of that proximity, right? And you're not going to get that through somebody's free podcast forever. Like, you have to increase your proximity to what you deem as excellence in that season. Okay, that's number 2.
Pardon the interruption, but I need you to hear this testimonial from our last 30-day vegan challenge in our Farm to Table plant-based coaching program, because we're quickly approaching our very next 30-day vegan challenge, and I need you to get registered as soon as possible. We have prep classes leading up to the challenge, and then we go crazy for 30 days. Whole food, plant-based, no salt, no oil, no sugar. Check out this testimonial.
Hey, Farm Fam, look, that was probably the best doctor's appointment I have ever had. She looked at my labs, and when she did the exam, she was like, this is perfect. She said, what in the world are you doing? Look, I told her what I was doing, and Lisa, she wrote your name down in the note. She's like, who is this woman? It was amazing. So the one thing that I couldn't figure out on the labs had to do with, they measure like the size and the shape of my cells. And when they measure that, it looks like there is an iron deficiency, but the numbers don't suggest that. So she said that's something that's just going to repair if I continue doing what I'm doing. It will show up in that. I was on iron supplements, so she was like, there is no need to take the iron supplements and visit the hematologist, because I actually stopped taking the iron already. And she was like, your numbers are like this and you're not taking iron. You've had this deficiency for years. And so she's flipping through and showing me how it's changed, right? I was like, yeah. And she was like, what in the world? And then she was like, well, how are you getting your protein? So, I whipped my phone out where I do my log, where I log my food, and she's seeing that I'm getting, the amount of grams that I'm getting of protein a day and fiber. And she was like, this is perfect. So she scheduled for me to come back to see her within 6 months. She was like, I am so looking forward to seeing you in the 6 months to see what happens with this, because I want to follow that one thing and how it looks, the shape of the cells and all that, because I want to have documentation going along and how it changed. So I want to see it in 6 months. Oh, and my blood pressure, she was like, your blood pressure is perfect. So she was like, the only non-negotiable regarding my blood pressure, because it was so good and almost close to like, it could be leaning to getting too low. So before removing the blood pressure medication, she said, please just don't stop taking it. Just do it with the cardiologist. Have an appointment with them. And if it drops too low, make sure that I'm communicating with them. She used the word perfect. Everything was perfect. She said, these labs are perfect. Oh, Oh my goodness. I don't remember her doing like a whole full exam of how she did my body today, but she was just like, this is so good. And I wish people would get it, that it's nutrition. And she touched my legs. Y'all know I told you I wore a dress today and my sandals. And she was like, your legs are so beautiful. They're perfect. So it is such a good visit. And she also knows how significant my issues get with my lungs during this season. And she was like, and you have bounced through this. Like, she said, I hear the congestion and the drainage, but she was like, this is nothing like normal. What other thing I think was the hematologist, I don't have to see the hematologist anymore, period, regarding the iron. She said the numbers look really good. And she said, that must be all the plants you're eating, the greens. So as I was telling her different things that I eat, you know, she was taking notes because her son is a diabetic, insulin resistant, I think type 1, if I'm getting it right. But I was telling her about chia smash, and she was like, I've seen that. You know, and I told her how I sweeten things with dates, and she asked how I made, where I got my date base from. I was like, I make it. It was such a good visit that I always leave a physician's office slightly distraught, even in the moment. I told you I've been on this journey of health and wellness within the last 3 years, and even with all of my best efforts, I would always leave like, well, dang, that didn't even matter what I did. But today, my labs they showed out. I mean, the labs showed out, and I got an explanation of what that is. And she was like, and that's not even really off. I need you to know it's just like a point of something. This is really, really good. So she was like, I can't wait to see you. Like, I look forward to seeing you in 6 months. And for the 6 months, I requested the 6 months lab first. And she was like, I think that's a great idea. And I look forward to seeing. If you did this since January, she said, I don't even know what it's going to look like in 6 months. And so, yes, that's it. And that's all. I'll land this plane. But I am so excited.
Wasn't that amazing? If you haven't already, click the link in the show notes. Get registered for our next 30-day vegan, salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge. And if you're really feeling lucky, go ahead and move up to the front row and grab yourself that VIP ticket. Now back to the show.
Now, this one might be a little challenging. So I'm about to challenge some of y'all with number 3, because number 1 and 2, you can do privately. You know, you can do less at once and you can increase your proximity to a possibility model. However, number 3, for some of you guys, is going to require some healing. So that's the prerequisite for number 3. The third one that I'm about to give you to deliver with a spirit of excellence, for some of you guys, is going to require healing first. Okay. But here's number 3. I've been doing it for years and it has been a game changer. Okay. The third way to operate with a spirit of excellence is to ask for and actually review feedback. So when I say we've been doing this for years in my business, for example, we have review forms that we give our clients at the end of an experience. So when we do our 30-day vegan challenge twice a year, at the end of that challenge, we literally send out review forms and say, hey, can you review this experience for me? Tell me what the 30-day challenge was for you. Give us some feedback. At the end of our coaching program, Farm to Table, we have exit evaluations that says, hey, evaluate this program for us. And then if you're really up for it, click here to book an exit interview to tell us even more. Ask for and review feedback. So at the end of our business accelerator, our coaches are able to book a one-on-one call with us to give us a review, for us to review the work they've done, and then for them to review us. Listen, if you are not healed, baby, it's going to be so hard. It's going to be so hard not to ask for the feedback, but to review it. It's going to be hard because none of us, want to hear anything bad. None of us want to hear that we didn't do good or that someone was unsatisfied or is dissatisfied. But let me tell you something. If you want to get out of the slow lane and get in the fast lane to excellence, the best way is to ask the people who you're in service to, how the heck you doing? Now, Again, I can't overstate. You got to be healed to do this, because here's what happens. More than likely, especially if you're kind of just starting off, you're not going to get all good feedback. And sometimes, and this is crazy, people are not nice. Sometimes people don't even know how to say it in a nice way. Trust me, I've received emails from people insulting me. Like, it can be tough to read, to hear feedback. But this is one of the best ways to get excellent quickly. Now, listen, you got to ask the people you're in service to. So this ain't just the general public. Like, ask who your ideal customer is. Ask who your ideal client is. Like, people who have, spent upwards to a year, 2 years with us in our programs. I value their feedback way more than somebody else who's just only consumed my YouTube or my podcast a couple times, right? So every piece of feedback is not weighed the same, right? But like literally a couple months ago, what happened? So our business accelerator, y'all, is a year long, right? And so our onboarding for our business accelerator is about 90 days. Like our onboarding process is about 90 days. And so at the end of that 90 days, our students inside of the business accelerator, they get an email from us saying, okay, you just completed your first 90 days, your first 3 months in the business accelerator. We would love to get some feedback from you on how it's going. Are you satisfied? Are we meeting your expectations? All of those things. And I remember last year sometime, one of our current students, she got that email, that 90-day email as part of her onboarding process. And she's like, nah, not satisfied. I thought this. So guess what I did? I reached out to her directly. It wasn't about just reading it and being like, okay. I actually was like, I want more context here. So I reached out to her. I booked a call. I hopped on a call with her and said, tell me more. Do you know how strong of a person you have to be to not get great feedback, but then invite somebody to a conversation and say, tell me more, right? And she explained to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, here's the issue. Here's what we can do. Here's your options, right? And she's like, all right, cool, thank you. And then we boom, 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 and worked it out. And she's still with us today, doing phenomenal. And so feedback is your opportunity to embody and to deliver with a spirit of excellence. But it's going to be hard to do that if you don't ask for it. And it's even harder to do that if you don't review it, listen to it. And if you need to, ask for deeper context, right? And so asking for feedback is you literally asking somebody to critique something you've created, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, it can be hard to take that critique because your business is your baby, right? Your coaching program, your book, your podcast, like that's your baby. You've produced that. You've birthed that. And it's hard to be like, to give birth to somebody and be like, is my baby cute? You know what I'm saying? It can be so hard. It can be so hard to birth a baby and then go around the people and be like, is my baby cute? Like, and they don't want to lie, like, right. Look at his little hands and toes. You know what I'm saying? They work their way all around the question. But y'all got to start asking people if your baby is cute. Like, you got to. Like, when you produce something, especially in service to other humans, right? You got to get feedback from the humans you're producing it for. And so it can be tough, but this has changed the game for me and my business, and it's changed the game for me and my relationships. Remember, we're talking about a spirit of excellence here, which means this is not just for your career. This is for your whole life. So in my relationships, I go to friends, I go to my partner, like, how am I doing? Like, I ask for feedback. So this is not just professional. This is also personal. How am I doing? How would you rate me? Where could I be better? Right? And so you have to embody this across. It needs to transcend your whole life. And again, though, it takes healing, because sometimes when we don't hear good feedback, we take it personal. We get in our feelings. We shut down, all the things that comes with not being received well, right? And so if you're not healed, this one, number 3, is going to be challenging for you. But we encourage our students in our business accelerator to create review forms for their speaking engagements, create review forms for their coaching programs. Like, you got to get feedback from the people you're in service to. But if you have a history of taking feedback as a personal attack or something negative on you as a person, it's going to be challenging to work through this one. So that's why you got to heal and understand that they're critiquing my baby, not me. Right. I mean, Erykah Badu said it like that. I'm sensitive about you know what I mean? Like, but that's what it takes. Like those of us who have ascended to a level of consistent excellence, it's part of that has come from feedback from people, from our audience. Right. And so that is number 3. Ask some people if your baby cute. Let's get into number 4. And then I got a bonus one for y'all that I think y'all gonna like. Okay. So that's number 3. Now let's get into number 4. Now this one actually piggybacks really, really well off of number 3 because it also kind of speaks to personal development a little bit. But the 4th way that I embody a spirit of excellence or have been able to is I made a distinction in my mind, very clear distinction, like very clear line of demarcation between the difference between excellence and perfection. Excellence versus perfection. Okay, so here's what I've noticed students do in the past. I've noticed that in the past, when I've encouraged our clients to show up with the spirit of excellence when they're taking our challenge, show up with a spirit of excellence when they're building their business with us, show up with the spirit of excellence in their personal development if they're in our mastermind, show up with the spirit of excellence in everything they do. Sometimes people interpret that as me asking them to be perfect, and that is not the same thing. There is a difference between excellence and perfection. This is not an invitation to be perfect. You get to be imperfect and still be excellent. Wait a minute. Okay. Now this is a belief shift that needs to happen for some of us. You get to be imperfect and excellent. So spirit of excellence does not mean that you don't make mistakes, right? It doesn't mean that you don't mess up. It doesn't mean any of that things. So spirit of excellence means when I walk away from a speaking engagement or a speaking gig, right? When I walk away from a coaching session, whether it's a one-on-one private coaching session or a group coaching session with our clients in our group coaching programs, when I walk away from a conversation, when I have to make a tough decision as a leader, I don't ask myself, was that perfect? Meaning, did everything work right? Were there no typos on my slides? Did I stumble over my words? If the tech messed up during a live broadcast, as soon as it messed up, I'm like, oh my God, this wasn't excellent. That's not true. It was imperfect. Excellence means every time I walk away from those things, I ask myself, did I do my absolute best? That's the only question you need to ask yourself. Did I do my absolute best? That defines whether or not you showed up with a spirit of excellence. Perfect means nothing went wrong, which is highly unlikely. I'm talking about highly unlikely, right? Like literally this past Wednesday, I'm teaching in Farm to Table and I taught for 2 hours, forgetting that I told the students this semester that class was going to be 90 minutes. I'm like, oops, I done held these people over. Let me give you an even better example. You know, I had to make a really tough decision as a leader a couple months ago, right? And I had to deliver some not so great news to some people on our team. And at the end of it, you know, I was like, I had thought through it ahead of time and really made the best decision that I thought was the best at the time and in the moment. And then afterwards, in hindsight, in the days and weeks that followed, I was like, I don't really feel good about the way that was delivered. So I had to circle back around and have another tough conversation with those individuals on the team because I delivered with a spirit of excellence in the best way that I knew how at the time, because it was my first time doing something like that. But then after reviewing it and going over it in my mind, I realized there's some things I could have did better. And I circled back around, right? So it wasn't perfect, but it was done what I believe to be a spirit of excellence because it was something I was doing for the first time, right? And I was doing it with the best information that I had at the time. So the spirit of excellence, guys, does not mean perfect. However, if you are defining in your mind excellence equals perfect, then you're most likely going to let yourself down a whole lot. a whole lot. Excellence does not mean perfect. Like we send out emails sometimes with typos. Sometimes our links break inside of our portal and people are like, I can't access this. And for some reason, the link broke because technology is technology, right? There's going to be imperfect things. You try and go live or you try and do a presentation, slides don't work, or you realize you put something on a slide by mistake that's not supposed to be there, or whatever it is, that doesn't mean it wasn't excellent. If you have done numbers 1 through 3, meaning you gave stuff the time it takes to do, meaning that you had a model of what excellence looks like, meaning that you asked for feedback. If you've done number 1 through 3, that means number 4, there is no requirement for perfection. That means you've done everything that you could to the best of your ability with the information that you had at that point in time. You were excellent. Like, as long as you truly are answering that question, did I do the best I could do? Now, some of us be lying to ourselves. Some of us knew, you know what, if I had took 2 more weeks working on this, this would have turned out better. If I had waited and did this in a certain way at a certain time, maybe when I wasn't tired, if I had done a little more research, I think I could have did this better. Okay, then that wasn't excellent. That wasn't your best. Excellence means it was your best. It does not mean that it was perfect. So if some of us are defining excellence by perfection, those terms are not the same thing, then we're going to let ourselves down and that's not going to feel good. So trust me when I tell you, the goal is to be able to walk away from everything that you do, personal or professional, and say, did I do my absolute best? And if you are not answering that question with yes over and over again, then you got some work to do on your brand of excellence. But your best does not mean perfect, which means you could do something today that you did last year, and today's version of it is 10 times better than last year's version. It doesn't mean last year's version wasn't excellent. It embodied who you were in that season, right? And it's just like our 30-day challenge. This last 30-day challenge that we did in January of this year was phenomenal. I also think the one we did in the summer of last year was also, I believe both of them were done with excellence. But just because this one was better than the last one doesn't mean the last one wasn't excellent. It was done with the best way we knew how to do it at that time. As we got feedback from the first one, we improved the next one. But they both were done with what I felt like was everything I could give in that season. So if it was exactly the same as the first, it probably wouldn't have been excellent. We gotta up level. We gotta improve as we go, right? So make sure you understand the difference between excellence and perfection, and you are not holding yourself to a standard of perfection, okay? That's not the goal. But did I write this email the best way? Like, do I feel like this is my best when I wrote this email? Did I feel like this is the best when I recorded this podcast? Like, did I plan for this? Did I map out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to say? Like, did I really show up as my best self? And if not, why not? Oh, I was tired. I didn't get enough rest. Oh, I ate some foolishness, so I had sugar on the brain. Oh, I didn't, you know what I mean? You got to know where you messed up at and then make the corrections, because people deserve our best. When you're in a service industry, people deserve your best. Okay. All right. Let's get into the last one, which is a bonus one. So we got 1 through 4 that defines a spirit of excellence, y'all. So let's get into the very last one. This is a bonus one, which might challenge you guys a little bit. Okay. Again, more personal development, because this one involves other people. Okay. But here's the bonus one. The 5th and final way that I embody a spirit of excellence is I've made a habit of demanding excellence from everyone around me. Whew. Now listen, I told a story in one of our classes several months back, right? During our 30-day challenge. So I believe it was in January. And I told them a story about the very first and last time I used Amazon Fresh. So you guys know that Amazon Fresh is like Amazon's version of shipping groceries, right? And so I have a brand of toilet paper that I use that I won't compromise on. This is the only brand of toilet paper I use, right? Now, for some reason, during this time in January, I could not find this toilet paper in the grocery store. Like, I went to like 4 stores, y'all, and I could not find my preferred brand of toilet paper. And so I was like, okay, I guess I got to order it online. And I wanted it quickly. So I had to order it on Amazon Fresh so that it could be delivered like the same day or the next day, right? So this was my first time using Amazon Fresh and has been my last. And they asked me something. So I don't really use the grocery shopping apps where people, shop for your stuff and bring it to you, right? So I don't know about how all of it works. I didn't at the time. And so I went on Amazon Fresh. They had my toilet paper. And so I'm ordering my toilet paper. And so, of course, they said something like, order this much amount up to $50 and you get this shipping, whatever. And I was like, well, I do need a few more things. So I might as well put them all in this cart, right? So I'm ordering the stuff and I got my toilet paper in there and I got my stuff in there, whatever. And then at the end, right before checkout, they asked me the craziest question. At the end, while I'm checking out on Amazon Fresh, this app had the nerve to ask me, if we don't have your item, will you be willing to accept a substitute? I said, who they talking to? And they do this for every item. So it's not like the question one time for like your entire order. They ask you per item. So you have to answer this question per item. Like, if they don't have the organic blueberries, would you be willing to accept a substitute? If they don't have your toilet paper, would you be willing to accept a substitute? If they don't have this brand of toothpaste, would you be willing to accept a substitute? And so I had to go through every item in my cart and tell them mugs, no, right? Absolutely not. Now, Amazon didn't know this, but I'm in my feelings. So I'm like, Amazon, I'm on here because I wouldn't accept a substitute in a grocery store. It's not that the grocery stores didn't have toilet paper. They didn't have my brand of toilet paper. So I'm surely not about to pay same day, next day, speedy tax and still get a substitute. Who you talking to? Like, Amazon don't know me personally, but I was still offended that they would ask me, would I accept a substitute? So I came here to tell y'all today, part of the reason you don't have a spirit of excellence is because you have a spirit of substitutes. You have made a habit of accepting less than what you asked for in every area of your life. So how on God's green earth are you going to consistently show up with a spirit of excellence when you don't demand that everyone around you does? If you want to embody a spirit of excellence, you have to start teaching people your values. I was offended that they would ask me whether or not I would accept conventionally grown blueberries. No, I will not. I want the organic ones. If you don't have it, don't bring me anything. Period. This is what I use. And for some of us, that's the case in our relationships. That's the case in our business. That's the case in our health. We are like, you know what? This would have been nice, but I'll settle for this. You literally have a spirit of settling over and over and over again. And the more you continue to settle, the further and further a spirit of excellence is going to get away from you because you don't demand it from other people. So surely you're not going to demand it from yourself. My podcast editor, I told y'all about Colette. Shout out to Colette. She listens to these episodes. Hey, boo. My podcast editor, as a matter of fact, a couple days ago, or I think last week or something, she always sends me 3 video options for our videogram. So, when we drop a new podcast episode every week, she sends me 3 clips, should I say. And it's like, which clip do you want to use for this particular episode, Lisa? I pulled these 3 clips that I think are dope. You're dropping a gem in this clip. And so which clip do you want to use? And so about a week or so ago, she sent me 3 clips for this particular podcast episode. And she put a disclaimer. She said, for some reason, your signal wasn't good when you recorded this episode. And so the clips are blurry. They're a little blurry. They clear up a few seconds into the video, but they all start off blurry. And she like, just FYI. And which one do you want to use? I said, none of them. I don't want to use any of them. We just won't have a clip this week. I said, see if you can you just put my audio over the podcast thumbnail? I don't want a clip. If it has to be blurry, I don't want a clip. And now she understands what? The standard. So what does that mean? She won't send me more blurry clips. She will know if for some reason I had a bad connection wherever I was recording and the clips cannot be crystal clear, don't do a clip. Just put my voice over the podcast thumbnail. Teach people your standard and do not compromise. The fifth way you have a spirit of excellence is you begin to demand it from everyone around you. That way it becomes easier to demand it from yourself. Okay. Amazon, this is not what I ordered. Don't bring me nothing but what I ordered. So the reason I say this is going to be challenging for some of you is because this requires you to speak up for yourself. And in some cases, probably in many cases, this is also going to require you guys to have difficult conversations. Difficult conversations, because you have probably already taught many people in your life that you will accept less than what you really want. So the next time you order something for somebody's supposed to be making a cake for a party for you, a sugar-free cake, I'm sure, you're going to say, that's not the way I wanted it. Next time somebody brings food out to your table at the restaurant, y'all messed up. That's not the way I ordered it, right? Next time your partner does something in a relationship that doesn't feel good to you, you got to speak up and say, that's not the way I ordered it, right? Like you're going to have to get that package in the mail and be like, well, they did it mostly right, but you know what? This isn't exactly what I wanted. You're going to have somebody that works for you send you a clip and be like, we're not using any of it. Either redo it or don't use it at all. That takes something, because we don't want to insult people. We don't want to get on people's nerves. We don't want to be that person. We don't want to come off as difficult, right? We don't want to start any friction in our relationships, but you're going to have to start speaking up and demanding excellence in your relationships, demanding excellence when you order stuff, demand excellence in the delivery from your team, from your superior. I remember I spoke in Atlanta last month, and at the end of it, one of my mentors was standing on the side, and I went up to him and I said, just so I don't have to say this again, I'm just telling you right now, every time I speak on y'all platform, I want you to give me feedback, right? I'm trying to be excellent and I need to embody excellence. And so I don't even want to have to ask you every time, how did I do? I just want it written, like I know when Lisa does X, to give her feedback. We have to demand excellence. We have to be surrounded by excellence. We have to, because then when you teach people how to treat you, you then all of a sudden feel like an innate responsibility to be that way yourself, right? So start demanding excellence from your friends, your family, right? The people you employ, your team, your partner, right? And that also means, though, you're going to feel obligated to return that same excellence, right? Because they can then look at you and be like, that ain't what I ordered either. You need to make some adjustments, right? So if you're going to demand greatness from me, then that gives other people the right to demand greatness from you. But I'm telling you, when that happens, everything up levels. Everything up levels. And guess what? Amazon sent me my toilet paper and everything else I ordered. Talking about, will I accept the substitute? No, I will not. What a silly, silly question. Who checks that box? No, I will not accept a substitute. I just call me when you got what I want, right? And so if we all took the call me when you got what I want approach to life, it changes things, right? Okay, so that is the 5 ways, 4 plus a bonus, that I embody a spirit of excellence. Sandy said, Lisa, would you consider compromising with someone, settling? It's so funny, Sandy, a couple years ago, I was talking to this dude and me and him was going back and forth. We were having a nice, lively debate about the difference between compromising and settling. It's such an interesting question because he was saying they're the same thing and I was saying they're not. And so, no, Sandy, I would not consider compromising and settling the same thing, or I would not consider compromising settling, right? I would not consider compromising settling. And so, settling is saying I'm willing to take something that's, below my standard. Like we should all have a bar, right? Like Sandy, it's the reason that I don't know if you've ever heard this kind of rule of negotiation, but one of the things I tell our students inside of our business accelerator, when they're going back and forth with an organizer, for example, about a speaking opportunity, and they'll come into our community and say, hey, coach, I got this speaking opportunity. This organization reached out to me and they want me to come in and speak about this. And I'm trying to decide on my rate, right? Like, what should I charge, coach? What should I go back and tell them? Like, do you think this is too much? Do you think that is too much? And I don't set prices for our clients, right? We talk them through setting their own prices. But Sandy, one of the things I tell them is that when you go and take your price to the organizer to start the conversation about payment, never start at your lowest. always start at the highest you will take, because that leaves room for negotiation, i.e. compromise, right? So settling would be like, the least I would take is 10 grand, but then I do it for 8. So if the least you will take is 10 grand, you need to start the conversation at 12 grand, because you can compromise down to what was still within your standard. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I hope that's an example to give you the difference between compromising and settling. I always tell our clients, start at the most you will take, and that gives you some wiggle room to still be within your personal standard. Okay. And so no, compromising and settling are not the same thing. I do not consider them the same thing. And so I hope that helps. So what was the major takeaways from today, guys? Was this a great framework for understanding how to show up with a spirit of excellence? Again, this is my brand of excellence. This is the way I've been able to do it over the past several years, and it changes the game. So before we wrap this thing up, you guys, a super quick announcement. Our next 30-day challenge for speakers, coaches, and consultants to get your health in the most optimal conditions so you can show up as your best is actually kicking off July 1st of 2025. However, we like to do prep for our challenge. And so prep is starting this month in April. Okay. So if you are a coach, speaker, or consultant, and you know you need to optimize your health in order to show up with a spirit of excellence, then I want to invite you to register for our free 30-day plant-based challenge. It starts July 1. So in order to make sure you get the most out of this challenge, make sure you register now so that you're in all 3 of our prep classes. Now, April and May will be general admission prep, and then June is going to be for VIPs only. So VIPs will get 3 prep classes, general admission will get 2. Okay? I love y'all. We'll see you guys back here, same time next Monday for our Monday morning keynote with yours truly, the forever voice in your head, your favorite health and business coach. I look forward to seeing y'all back there, same time, same place. Bye, y'all.
You tuned in today because, like me, you refuse to let your good become the enemy of your great. You're not settling for good health when optimal is well within reach. If you're ready to go from good to great, visit lisaangelsmith.com to learn more about our plant-based health coaching program, Farm to Table, and our plant-based business accelerator and coaching certification. But before you go, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast. Until next time, remember, radical obedience is still undefeated. Stay obedient.